Aspire Communication provides a wide variety of image, publicity and branding services to established industries and emerging talent. For nearly 20 years, Aspire has worked with a diverse roster of over 120 technology, health, political and talent clients, garnering regional and national awards in the United States. So if you're in need of a publicity and branding services, call 888 405 6730 or visit www.aspirecommunications.com. G'day, Brad Scott here, the host of the highly successful Naked Zombie radio show. Now, not only am I the host of this wonderful program, but I'm also a freelance broadcaster and voiceover artist. So if you're looking for someone to sell your product or be a part of your next voiceover project, and someone whose voice is heard in places like China, Japan, the UK, the USA, the Ukraine, and of course, Australia. Now, I'm easy to contact. You can either go to the contacts page and leave your details, or you can ring my professional studio on this phone number, +61 73103 0566, and let me know what your next project is, and I'll get a quote out to you ASAP. Simple as that. There's no commission structures, there's no third parties, and there's no agents. I will be working solely for you. So get in touch with me if you want one of Australia's leading voiceover talents to help you promote and sell your business or product. Thank you. I'm Brad Scott.
Well, that's enough of that crap. Welcome to Naked Zombie Paranormal Radio with your hosts, Brad Scott and Wadsy.
It is the 4th of August 2011 and you are listening to the best in Australian paranormal radio. I'm your host, Brad Scott, and you are listening to Naked Zombie. That's right, Naked Zombie Paranormal Pop Culture Radio, whatever you want to call it. We are expanding immensely the field, and I must say, a couple of days ago, this is how good things are getting for us. Before we get into everything else, that Naked Zombie was pulled off the web. That's right, it was pulled off by the service provider because they could not handle the amount of traffic downloading and coming onto the Naked Zombie website. That's right, they pulled it. They just could not handle it. Anyway, as you know, you listen now, so it's back up. So we chase service providers so they can handle the amount of traffic that comes through. So thank you to all our fans and listeners out there on the Naked Zombie paranormal pop culture, yada yada yada, our army of zombies out there. So thank you to everyone who's been listening and doing the show. Anyway, look, tonight we have a great guest on. Now, people who know me know I do voiceover work as well, and it's always fascinating when I speak to other artists in this field, but I'm actually speaking to a good mate of mine tonight who is actually he's an animator for Disney Studios. Now, he'll be coming on the show a bit later, but first I'll get into it when I introduced her properly. But I've got a new segment on as part of the Naked Geek side of things, and it's with Debbie Henderson Slater, and she is going to read out a movie review for us for the first one for Naked Zombie with the Naked Geek movie review. So please welcome to the show for the first part of it, Debbie Henderson Slater with the Naked Geek movie reviews.
Now it's time for the Naked Geek movie reviews with Debbie Henderson Slater. With all the news and current events of all the strange and happenings in the news and film industry around the world, and what's out on DVD and what's out on film for you to watch. Thank you.
And we have Debbie, who is our Naked Geek movie reviewer. That's right, we have a movie reviewer for Naked Geek, which is absolutely wonderful and fantastic. And Debbie is, each week as we do the show, she's going to be reviewing movies that us people who like this sort of thing get a kick out of. And Debbie's a big fan of all this stuff as well. So, Deb, hello, and Naked Geek yourself, my friend.
Yes, hello. As I just mentioned, I haven't seen many naked geeks around lately, but I'm
No.
hoping to see a few more listeners on the air. That'd be great.
No, look, that's what it's about, my friend. That's what it's about. And you have got tonight for our very first movie review for The Naked Geek. You have a great movie that I have not seen yet, and this is why you are pulling the punches out tonight and giving us the nuts guts of basically what movies are and what's in them. And you have I Am Number Four. Is that correct?
That's exactly right, Brad. Yes, I'm number four. It's actually a Michael Bay production.
Mm.
It's been directed by DJ Caruso,
Yep.
and it's actually a Touchstone DreamWorks production. So
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I Am Number Four does not waste any time setting up a story or establishing the characters,
Mm-hmm.
rather than the spectacular special effects, courtesy of George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic.
So George Lucas had a part to play in this too, did he?
Yeah, with the special
Vex,
effects.
yeah, Industrial Light and Magic. Excellent.
And look, honestly, it's almost non-stop action from the start within 30 seconds of the film's opening, which really
Yep.
impressed me. So, what basically happens here is a young man dies horribly and mysteriously in an unspecified Asian country, and then the audience is instantly transported to present day Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Florida, we meet the major character Daniel, played by Alex Pettifer. He's a young all American high school student, good at sports, and he's actually even better with the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the same time as the young guy's demise in Asia, whilst Daniel is swimming with his latest conquest, he experiences a painful and not unexpected event. His leg is literally branded even as he swims, and we notice that the leg also bears two other very similar scars. This freaks out his fellow partygoers, as you can imagine, who
Mm.
leave him to fend for himself on the beach. Clearly, Brad, Daniel is not what he seems.
Okay.
So we cross to the next morning where
Yep.
Daniel is rescued from the beach by his mysterious guardian, Henry, played
Okay.
by, yeah, he's played actually by Timothy Oliphant, and that's not
Okay.
Elephant,
Elephant.
Oliphant.
Yeah. Yep.
And once again, it seems they have been sprung by some supernatural pursuers and they are forced to leave town yet again.
Oh, so
Now,
this movie is basically like all about supernatural. This
yeah.
is a geek stream movie. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, definitely. Everyone that they actually encounter thinks that Henry must be Daniel's father.
Oh,
But
okay.
it turns out that Henry is actually his protector. He's a warrior from Daniel's home planet. Yes, old Danny boy is actually
Oh, good
an
stuff.
alien.
Oh, that's what I like to hear.
Yeah, so one of the last remaining citizens of planet Lorien. Only 9 Lorians were left after being overrun and scattered by the Mogadorians. Now, they're actually a warlike race of conquerors whose
Mm.
code of honor dictates total annihilation of any society that they happen to subjugate. Hence, their search of the universe to terminate the remaining Lorians. 4 Lorians made it to Earth, and Daniel is number 4 on their list. The other 5 being on other planets, presumably. All that Daniel has left from his dead parents is a mysterious box, guarded by Henry, his guardian, which
Yeah.
he will receive when the time is right. So they flee sunny Florida and head for the ironically named Paradise, which happens to be in wintry Ohio,
Yep.
where they make a home for themselves in an isolated rural farmhouse.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back in Florida, a shady lady by the name of Teresa Palmer
Mm.
trashes and burns the house they have just abandoned. Maybe she's a Mogadorian, perhaps, as well.
So you're not
When
actually giving it away too much, are you? You're just sort of giving us a bit of a plot outline, actually, what's going on.
Oh,
You're
absolutely
not going to wreck it for us, are you? Damn.
not at all. No, no. Outline of Daniel is from another planet. He is an alien.
Yep.
However, when in paradise, Daniel undergoes a change of identity in order to attend the local high school and is henceforth known as John Smith. And I'll put a little aside here, Brad. Yeah, very original John
Yes,
Smith.
John
Yes, right.
Smith. No thought went
As
into
new
that,
boy
did it?
Johnny, Daniel immediately attracts the attention of 3 pivotal characters: the science geek Zam,
Yep.
So there you go. There's a science geek for you.
Yeah.
The school paper photographer Sarah, played by Diana Agron, and school bully jock Mark. Now, while rescuing Sam from Mark and his minions, John, i.e., Daniel, discovers that he has acquired superhuman powers apparently bestowed upon him by the Guardians.
Yep.
Because he is the last Lorian left on Earth. So, after saving Sam from another bully assassin, John learns that Sam's father has been missing for years, possibly even alien abducted. So, Sam reveals that his dad was an amateur UFOologist and
Yep.
anthropologist who had always expected some sort of alien intervention. In the meantime, Henry, that's the Guardian, realizes that the Mogadorians are closing in on him and John when he discovers a strange chamber in a derelict warehouse. He has the time come to open the box. What are the creatures that live in the Mogadorians' truck and are fed on frozen turkeys? And I'm not kidding, they throw about
so
from
what
the
we've
supermarket into the truck.
so what we've
Anyway.
got here is so we've got a bit of a Brokeback Mountain anal probing alien thing going on, don't we?
Well, you'll have to wait and see it for yourself.
Because I haven't seen it. It sounds good. Well, I'm interested. Keep going. Yep.
Yeah, a little bit to go. In the
No, you're
aftermath of a bungled abduction on a fairground ghost train. Now, this is a love interest, keep in mind, where Sarah has been kidnapped by Mark and his gang.
Yeah.
Sam witnesses John's supernatural powers. He easily cleans up 4 football jocks without breaking even into a sweat. Sam challenges John to explain and is told point blank that UFOs, aliens, and ancient astronauts are all true. They walk among us, the banner screams.
Oh, good stuff.
Sarah is suitably impressed, of course, by John's fighting prowess and naturally falls in love with him, of course, and he her. Upon learning this news, Henry the Guardian insists that it is time to move on again. John protests his love for Sarah, and Henry drops his bombshell. That's what I've always been afraid of that would happen. We don't love like humans. We only love once forever.
This is the anal probing thing, isn't it? This is the problem.
We only love once.
Imagine the honeymoon. Anyway, so hey, so basically, what we're coming
Henry
up
is
to.
he's actually taken by some human stooges in cahoots with the Mogadorians, and he's actually used to trap John, who is finally left with the box. So, Brad and viewers, if you want to know what happens next, well, you'll just have to rent out the DVD.
I think so. Now, out of okay, because we've got a new scoring system for movies, and it's 1 out of 5, don't we? But
yes.
we're basically we're going to call it the Naked Geek scoring system. So, out of 1 to 5 Naked Geeks,
Yes.
and how many Naked Geeks would you say? There's 1 being absolute rubbish. 5
well,
being
all in
awesome.
all,
Star Wars.
all in all, Brad. Sorry to interrupt again.
No.
You've got to say this. All in all,
Yep.
it's actually a big 3.5 Naked Gig stars out of 5 from me. Okay.
Oh, so we've got 3.5 naked geeks running around.
A good if unknown cast, tight direction, and great special effects make number 4 a winner.
Mate, that is absolutely brilliant, Debbie. So we got 3.5 naked geeks going towards the movie I Am number 4. Now, next week, what have you got for us next week, mate? You got something in the pipeline? It wouldn't have anything to do with a human centipede by any chance.
I know what you're going to say. Oh my goodness, I don't know if I can still bring myself to actually broadcast that one, Brad. We'll have to wait and see, darling.
All right,
I will get back to you.
No, that's fine.
Keep the audience in suspense, and please listen in next week, and hopefully I have something worthwhile for you guys.
Excellent. Well, I just personally would just like to thank our movie reviewer, Debbie Henderson Slater, for her fantastic review of I Am number 4. And Debbie, we will be speaking to you next week.
All right, darling, and hopefully I might even have more than naked 3.5 gigs for you.
Hey, look, I don't care if they're 1 gig. That's what I love about you, mate. You give us the honest truth. That's what we want. We want the hard facts about these movies. All right, mate. We'll speak to you next week.
All right. Thank you so much, Brad, and you have a nice evening. Thanks.
You too. Cheers.
Bye. Bye-bye.
And thank you, Deb, for that fantastic movie review. And now, I've got to get onto this guest of mine. Look, he's a good mate. He's phenomenal. I'm going to give you a bit of a history about Herb. Right. Currently, he's a timing supervisor at Walt Disney Animation Studios. I mean, that just says, look, as a voiceover guy, anyone who can animate or does that type of work, it just blows me away. And it's just incredible the talent that this guy has. And let me just go through a bit of his history for you because it's going to knock your socks off. Right. At the moment, he's at Walt Disney Studios. He was a timing supervisor from 2007, timing supervisor for Walt Disney Animation, TV Animation, Cartoon Network, animation timer at Cartoon Network, timing supervisor at Warner Brothers Animation from 2001 to 2005, timing supervisor for Warner Brothers from 1996 to 2009. It's 9 years, and Warner Brothers Animation. I mean, this is a man who has been in the industry for a very, very long time. And look, and a good mate of mine and a good friend of the show. Please welcome to the Naked Zombie, Mr. Herb Moore. G'day, Herb. How are you?
Brad, I'm doing good. Thank you very much. Thanks for such a great intro. You make me sound so much better than I really am.
Yeah, well, that $50 is in the mail, I hope. So we talked about that earlier. Anyway, so Herb, look, this is the thing. Look, we do a lot of shows on the paranormal, but we also do a lot of stuff on pop culture. And a lot of this tonight's show was to do with in the animation side of it, because as a big geek that I am, I love animation. I'm an old, that's all folks type of guy. I really enjoy that whole side of it. But Herb, your career, I mean, you originally went you went to university at the Western Kentucky University, that is correct. What made you decide that, hey, this is what I want to do? I want to work with Disney of all places, and to become a Disney animator, you have to be pretty much the best of the best.
Well, I can say that now, I guess, because I've reached that point, but I don't know that I feel like I'm the best of the best. But I have to tell you, when I first started out, I graduated from high school. I decided I don't really want to go to college yet until I figure out what I want to do. I took 2 years off and worked for my dad. Then I went to school, and after being there for a year, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I left college and went to Walt Disney World to drive a boat at the Jungle Cruise.
Yep.
And kind of get my head on straight, because I knew I'd have fun down at Disney World. And so while I was there, I figured out I want to be in film animation. I come from an art family. I love cartoons. I love movies. So I said, I'm going back to school. I'm going to get my art degree. I'm going to California, and I'm going to set the world on fire.
Yep.
And every bit of that's true, except setting the world on fire.
Well, if you have a look at your resume, Herb, it's pretty damn impressive, mate. And come on, look, we're mates. You've given yourself not enough credit, my friend.
Well, I have to tell you, Brad, I've had a lot of fun. I've been very lucky. I started out on The Simpsons as a background designer and background cleanup artist, and that really was getting my foot into the door. And once that happened, I found out how much I really did love TV animation and film animation and feature animation. And, I think when you really decide what you want to do and you find out that's your passion, then a lot of the bumps and bruises you go through don't seem so bad. So I just had a blast trying to get on shows that I knew I liked. And fortunately, a lot of them I got onto turned out to be really good shows that the public liked. And it's nice to get paid to laugh, because I laugh every day on my job.
Yes, and I hate you for it too. Good. No, look, and this is the thing. We everyone does what they love doing. It's like I love doing the Naked Zombie and interviewing my friends, and also people from around the world, and doing voiceover work and all the rest of it. But to actually sit down and be able to draw, and that's something I cannot do. I can draw a bad stick figure. That's about it. So, and even then his limbs don't match up. So when you take something to produce emotion that has repetitive, like looking at the Disney cut, the early stuff, like when Mickey Mouse first, Steamboat Mickey and stuff like that, the sheer skill it takes to make one picture into moving sets of frames. And do you guys still do? It's something like a couple of hundred pictures per second or something, isn't it? Or well, how does that work? You're gonna have to explain it to me, because I don't get the concept totally.
Well, it's actually pretty simple. I don't know who came up with it, but initially when film was when feature film, movie film was introduced, 24 frames a second
Yep.
is kind of the standard in the industry.
Yep.
Even nowadays, though most of what we do is digital, we still refer to things as 24 frames a second or 16 frames in a foot of film. But those are terms that we'll talk about later. But you're right. Each frame of or each second of film requires up to 24 hand-drawn drawings to make something move or fast or slow, depending on whatever the action is. So when you figure, like the show I'm on right now, Phineas and Ferb, is a great show, but every 11-minute episode we do, there is, I believe, 1,100 frames of film that have to be accounted for with drawings and action and dialogue, and so it's pretty incredible the amount of work and people involved to make a film project happen from start to finish. It's so labor intensive that you really have to develop a lot of patience, and you have to also be willing to say, you know what, I could make this better, but I don't have enough time. I have to let it go. That's sometimes in production you have to be able to say, I got to stop because other people need my work to carry on the process.
But what surprises me, it's the amount of people, like you said before, that take to produce one single cartoon. It's the cleanups, it's the editing, it's the painting. Each part is separate to another part. It's like it's a production line as such. But to have all these people working together in the cartoon industry or animation industry now started off doing the old-fashioned way with, take a photo, put another sleeve over the top, draw it, sketch it, and I understand that side of it. But with the animation nowadays, how you also incorporate with the computer side animation meshed with normal animation, like they did, I think it was with the Emperor's New Groove, because they used a lot of both, didn't they? Some of the scenes were computer generated, but a lot of it was also the traditional. And that's I think the Emperor's New Groove was the sort of the turning point between the mixing of the two. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going from my basic knowledge of cartoons.
Right.
Is that sort of how it worked?
Yeah, you're actually right. The way it kind of evolved, I think, or at least from my perspective, Brad, is there was a point where people realized that they could utilize the computer to make their animation faster, cheaper, prettier. But there was a fear that by using the computer, you'd lose some of that 2D energy that people were used to, that made it so lovable, enjoyable. Good animation is great to watch. So since then, we've obviously seen this transition where we have 3D and we have 2D, and there's a great intermix. Sometimes you can see it, and sometimes it's done so well that you can't even tell the difference. It might look 3D, but it's actually 2D stuff, or it might be 3D, but they paint it to look 2D. 2D. It's phenomenal what we can do now compared to what we could have done, even 10 years ago.
I mean, this is a beautiful thing about it, Herb. Like, you've seen the industry change as it has. You've seen the technology come. You've seen the talent come. You've met the directors. You've done all this with a cartoon animation, and we'll get on to look, I love cartoons, as you can tell. if you go on to, I remember waking my grandfather up at like 5 o'clock in the morning when he was to stay with him, because I come from central Queensland, Gladstone. We only had two TV channels, but when I came to Brisbane, they had 4, and they had like a cartoon channel early in the morning. So I used to get my grandfather up at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, wake him up so he could turn the TV on for me, so I could sit down and watch his cartoons. Beautiful, man. But that's what it was like for me. I still to this day, I'll sit down and watch just about anything with drawing and that in it. Now, I'm totally off track, and I've lost. No, I'm not. What we're going to look at also is later on during the show tonight, we're also going to talk about some of the urban legends behind, some of the stories, some of the anecdotes that have happened in the industry, and all positive stuff, of course, because that's what we like to do. And just to tell a bit of a story behind everything. So what we do, we're going to get back to you now, mate. Now, So you finish university, you go and drive a boat through the jungle thingy that I've never been to yet because I've never been out of the country. You did join the boat and you sat down, you start doing cleanup work, and as you progress, you said you worked on The Simpsons and stuff like
Right.
that. What was it like working under, say, Matt Groening and people like this within the animation industry who are looked at as like heroes in a lot of ways? And how do they keep that momentum going after 20 seasons or 20 years or something like that? How they just keep coming up with new and new stories and ideas? Because that, with the cartoon industry, if you look at stuff like the Secret Saturdays and stuff like that,
Right.
they only
Right.
produced a certain amount of episodes, but it was done in a storyline fashion. It was one episode led to another episode, led to another episode, like you do in a sitcom or a serial, where a lot of other
Right.
cartoons just have individual episodes. How does The Simpsons, in that way, manage to make totally separate individual cartoons for 20 years? How is that? How do they change writers, or what do they do? Sorry,
Well,
this is mind blowing.
It's easy enough to say somebody got lucky,
Yeah.
but I have to tell you, having worked on them, there are two people that I think were kind of legendary in how they changed the public's way of thinking about cartoons. And for lack of a better term, we'll call them Saturday morning cartoons, although now they're on all the time. Matt Groening was one of them with The Simpsons, and John Kricfalusi was another with Ren and Stimpy.
Oh,
And I'll
Ren
tell you an
Stimpy.
interesting story about John Kricfalusi in a second,
Yep.
kind of getting into that urban legend kind of side of things. But the thing that we liked about The Simpsons that Matt Groening really pushed was how awkward and weird the family was, but they're really not that much different than a lot of families around the world. You know, they have their problems.
Yep.
They just make fun of it in a very cartoony way. I think the great thing about what Matt did was he found something. And if you'll remember when The Simpsons first came out, there were people that ridiculed it, and teachers said, you know, I'm going to ban conversation about it from kids because I don't want kids, you know, it's bad for them.
Eat my shorts and all that, because they started
Yeah.
on the Tracy
Ullman show.
Ullman show. I remember seeing that as a young bloke, seeing that Tracy had this cartoon that came with The Simpsons, and they were very badly drawn.
Yeah.
They weren't badly drawn, but they were only meant to be like a minute long or 2 minutes long or something like that.
Right.
And from that created this worldwide phenomena. I mean, everyone loves Homer. Come on, yeah. It's just he's every parent out there in
Yeah.
my eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So keep going, mate.
Well, it was fun because we all kind of liked what Matt was trying to project. And so it became kind of like, you know, you kind of signed on. You kind of like, yeah, this is kind of fun. Nobody's doing anything like it right now. It's not totally irreverent, but it does have a little edge to it. And I think through the course of the first 3 or 4 years, the show began to find a real true following of people that were like, I don't care what they put on. I love The Simpsons and I'm going to watch it. And it really just grew. You know, people just took charge of it and thought, yeah, my family's kind of like them. Maybe we're not yellow. Maybe we don't have,
Full fingers.
you know, light bulb shaped bodies and heads and blue hair. But the idea was we kind of have our own problems and we make fun of them. And that's what The Simpsons are. They're just a family that has problems, you know.
Oh, look, definitely. And the thing is that this is for people who don't realise this, but with the animation side, especially drawing the hands, they only ever draw the 4 fingers, don't they? Or 3 fingers and 1 thumb.
Right.
Because it's easier to put the fingers in certain situations and stuff like that. Is that correct?
Yes, it ends up that if you draw it like human hands with a thumb and 5 fingers, it just ends up being kind of cramped and
Yeah.
smudges together. And so cartoon human characters have been easily accepted as having, you know, 3 fingers and a thumb, and it just looks better.
Yeah, of course. Except if you get into the Japanese, into the anime, or the more sort of person orientated, that's when they like full blown. But you got to admit,
Yes.
when going into the just quickly on the Japanese anime and stuff like that, I think that's amazing. The amount of workmanship that goes into some of these Japanese cartoons.
Yes.
The attention to the smallest detail, like Ghost in a Shell, Oh god, there's just too many to mention at this stage. Is like our Spirited Away, a Howl's Moving Castle, and all the rest of it. Just the actual detail in the scenery alone, or the clothes they wear, or the hairs on their skin. If you know what I mean, it's the how is something like that, and these are mainly hand drawn, aren't they? This is the thing.
Yes.
These aren't just pumped through a computer. This is all riggy-diggy stuff.
Right.
What sort of...
It's a great process. I mean, I have to say I marvel at the Asian anime storytelling because they can get so much feeling and emotion involved in, for lack of a better term, the least amount of pencil work. In other words, they won't do a ton of drawings to fill up a second of film, but they might do, 2 beautiful drawings that are held, and you just can't help but focus on the way the character is standing and the fact that maybe it is just a little bit of hair that is gently, blowing in the breeze. But I also think one of the things I love about anime is they can put so much attention and detail into backgrounds and secondary things like props that maybe aren't moving, but they support the emotion of the story. So you don't end up with a ton of stuff moving, but you're still gripped by these great stories or great action. It doesn't necessarily have to be, a romance or kids.
I mean, you take stuff like Ghost in a Shell. That's not romantic. That's full on limbs ripped off and everything. Yeah, I mean, and that's not suitable for kids. But the detail and the bone snapping and stuff. I know it sounds terrible, but this extra detail they put into these shows is great. Okay, just going back onto Ren and Stimpy. I mean, if you don't know who Ren and Stimpy is, just go and hide in shame somewhere. Because the actual guy who created Ren and Stimpy was a bit of an odd fish, wasn't he? And I'm putting that in the nicest possible way. I never had the pleasure of meeting the gentleman myself, but I've read books about him and stuff like this because I'm right into animation. That's why Ren and Stimpy is Ren and Stimpy.
Yes.
Could you explain that for us, please?
Well, John Kay, as we called him, has a vision. Had a vision. He had his own style. He had his own way of telling a story, and he really was doggedly determined to not veer off what he thought was his way of doing it. And so, as artists, we all like to kind of add and contribute, but he didn't want anybody to do anything, and I know this does sound harsh, didn't want anybody to do anything other than exactly the way he saw it. And he molded some great storyboard and character people because they began to understand why he was doing what he was doing. The funny thing about John Kay is I had a chance to meet him years ago, and he was teaching a friend of mine some storyboard techniques that he wanted in his show. And you could just see the passion and drive in him, and it was such that it was pretty intense. Now, he wasn't upset, but he was very determined that he was going to make sure this guy understood what he wanted. And I was like, wow, that guy's kind of harsh, But he did these great Ren and Stimpy cartoons that people just marveled over because they were such fun drawings and great stories, and they were bizarre and twisted, but they were so entertaining. So to make a long story short, from my perspective, I saw on Facebook that he was somebody's friend, so I sent him an invitation, thinking, well, what the heck? I'm a true admirer. I never worked for the guy, but I loved what he did. And sure enough, he accepted my invitation and sent me a little note saying, Herb, I'm glad to link up with you. I'm anxious to talk, shop with you. And I was like, wow, this is one of the legendary guys in the business that really changed artists and the way people viewed animation, viewed cartoon humor. And now I can claim that we're Facebook buddies,
Oh, mate, look, it's this thing. He took it to a whole new level. I remember years ago seeing him being interviewed, and it was like trying to get blood out of a stone for the interviewer. Because he just sat there and went, yeah, no, yeah, type thing. He man of very few words, but I understand what I have read about him, stuff like that. He is very intense in everything he does. Now, Ren and Stimpy wasn't his only claim to fame, was it? I mean, who could forget the good old Happy Happy Joy Joy song and having a heap of Stimpies on the bus and all this other stuff? I mean, the man's mind just works in ways as an animator and director that really was groundbreaking for that
Yes.
time. You know what I mean? Because Ren and Stimpy was more not set for the kids. It had the kids side of it, but it had very much an adult content in it.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean,
there
there's
was
still
some
dark
sobering
stuff on
humor
there.
in it. Yeah, it's the funny thing, he created this character George Liquor, who was a great character. If I remember correctly, he was really a very intense guy that just kind of always spoke on the edge of being out of control.
Yeah.
He did these goofy things within the show where he would have a little jingle about log. Everybody needs to buy log.
Log.
Log. Yeah, happy, joy, joy.
Yeah,
He would do stuff that we just thought was so silly, but he pushed it just perfectly so that it became cultural.
Yeah.
And it really shaped, I think, a lot of thinking as well as the direction of a lot of cartoons, because he went and did weird stuff that was funny. And before, I mean, I love working at Disney, but before that, we had sweeter Disney stuff, even gentler Warner Brothers stuff. They were fun to work on, and we got laughs out of them, but nobody dared cross that line.
No.
And John Kay did it, and Matt Groening as well with The Simpsons. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he also with Matt Groening when he brought out with Bender and Fry and with the Futurama, right?
The Futurama thing, I don't think anybody thought would be successful, because how do you top The Simpsons? Or how do you even get people to go watch it if it's not The Simpsons? And I think Futurama is a cartoon that showed that Matt Groening could do more than just The Simpsons and capture your attention in a storytelling fashion. I mean, the guy did a great job and is still doing a great job.
And I'm honoured to say I own every single episode of Futurama. There you go. I bought the DVD packs when they came out to Australia. Look, this is talk about. Now, we're going to... Your career has spanned quite some time now, Herb. And has there been any sort of moments within your career as an animator, as with the timing and whatever you want to put it down to, is that has really stuck with you, that's made you sit back and go, my God, what an industry! This is just the best.
Well, yeah, I'm sure if I thought about it, there's several things that I could come up with, but the first thing that pops in my mind is, and I'll never forget this because it really was one of those moments that made me very proud of what I did. When I was working at Warner Brothers, one of the shows I worked on was, as a timer, was Animaniacs, and I enjoyed the cartoon because it was crazy and wacky and had songs, and it was fast and zippy, and it was goofy and silly, but very, very well done. And within the body of Animaniacs, there were two characters, Pinky and the Brain.
Oh, and Pinky and the Brain! Oh, yeah.
They had the little Pinky and the Brain stories ever so often, and eventually, as we know, they spun off Pinky and the Brain into their own series.
Yeah.
Well, the first time, and I'll have to explain this, and I don't want anybody to fall asleep. The first time that I received an Emmy certificate, which is a way of saying I worked on a show that won an Emmy, didn't get a statue, but I got a certificate, was on Animaniacs. And I was so proud of that fact. But the second time that I got an Emmy certificate was for the Pinky and the Brain Christmas special. And that show was so cool because, it had its goofy, silly stuff, and Brain was smart, and Pinky was dense. But in that part of the Christmas special, Brain's just about ready to turn on these dolls that was going to allow him to take over every person in the world.
That's
and
right.
Something happened where he was left with a choice of, if I do that, I'll lose my friendship with Pinky.
Yep.
And he chose not to do it. And I just thought, out of all the silliness that goes on in these cartoons, you can reach a moment where it's really touching and very heart-inspiring. And so I loved the Pinky and the Brain Christmas special, and eventually got an Emmy certificate for it winning an Emmy. So I took my first Emmy certificate and I framed it and I sent it to my mom and dad and said, here's the first one I won. But I was the most proud of that Pinky and the Brain Christmas special because it just had a really heart-rendering story wrapped around all the silliness that Pinky and the Brain did.
I mean, you look at cartoons in general, and a lot of the ones that we sit back as children and we watch and we just amazed just by the colours and the antics. But I guess it's when you get older and you look at cartoons like 20 years down the track and you sit back and go, geez, that was brilliant. You know, how did they... There's so much more to them than what people assume there to be. It's like you said with the Pinky and the Brain Christmas special. I particularly remember that episode. I mean, my father he has no sense of humour. There's only ever 2 times I've seen him laugh at a cartoon was at the Roadrunner.
Right.
And when the Cody kept cobbling off, you know, and Pinky and the Brain. That's the only 2 things my dad's an engineer, big guy like me, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But he doesn't have that sense of humour but the funniest thing, I caught him watching Pinky and the Brain and he was cacking himself. As soon as I walked in the room, it all stopped. He just sat there, this is all right. Yeah, type thing, that's my old man. But that's what I loved about it. It brought out emotions in people that not necessarily would show that emotion, if you know what I mean. I've had, seriously, I won't lie to you, I've seen some cartoons that actually brought a tear to my eye. And because of the emotion involved. I've had cartoons where I've nearly fallen off the chair. Look, you take South Park. I mean, I don't know how those 2 boys get away with what they do. Be honest with you, but I admit I'm a South Park fan. Even though their first animation cartoon was just out of crepe paper and they'd take a photo then move it when they did their first, like, Cartman Gets an Anal Probe, I think it was called. It was that whole thing. Then from that, South Park has developed into something that there are even times that I have to turn away. If you know what I mean, go, it's a great cartoon, I love it. I don't think I could watch that bit. I turn around, but the trouble is, my sons are turning into teenagers, and I've got, like, again, full South Park collection. I love anything with cartoons. So now I'm finding is what the little buggers are doing. They're actually going in, swapping out the disc from, say, did they just grab a Little Mermaid disc they had from 10 years ago, putting that in the Cartman or in the South Park City, and they're going off in their room watching South Park on me, thinking, I mean, they're trying to pull that stunt because they think it's funny. They don't see it, and then I go mad at them, of course, because they're too young. But it's that whole thing is kids will always see the funnier side of something in cartoons. Except when Bambi's mum got shot and all the rest of it, and all this other stuff. We can go on and on to cartoons till the cows come home. I'm sorry, Herb. I do apologise.
No, it's great.
But this,
you know me. I'm like you. I love cartoons.
I mean, this is the thing. Like I said, I can't even draw a bad stick figure. That's the sad part about it. I mean, I'd love to voice them, but far as I remember as a kid, because I couldn't draw. And this is, sorry, I'm getting off track a bit, but to get in the industry that I'm in with voiceover, I still to this day, I'll be driving along and I'll be trying to do character voices or something like this. And then I get one down pat and I go up to my sons and say, hey guys, what are you thinking here? Giggity, giggity type thing. And they go, go away, Dad, you're embarrassing us. So, I mean, I pull these voices on my kids and it's like, Dad, stop it, just go away. So I quite often sit in my own little space doing it, but that's what I mean. In that sort of field, there is so much to animation that just means so much to so many people around the world, and I'm very passionate about it. I'm very passionate about the work that you do, Herb, because seriously, for a guy like me who has no talent in that side of things, to see someone create something so beautiful and so bring something out of creation from an imagination to life. And basically what you're doing is giving these we don't look at The Simpsons as a cartoon, for say. We actually have grown up looking at them as an actual family. If you know, we look at their Homer's exploits and what Bart gets up to, and Marge and baby Maggie and Lisa. We don't sit back. I could be wrong, could be the only bloke on the planet who thinks this, but you grow up knowing these characters. You grow up knowing Bugs Bunny and Marvin the Martian and all the rest of it. If you're my age, if you're a lot young, if you're 20 years younger than me, you have no idea who I'm talking about. Google Marvin the Martian. You're gonna, it's just fantastic. This is classic cartoon. I mean, this is what it's about. Okay, mate. Look, I'm rambling on too much now because I'll get off subject again. Now, mate, when we talk about some of the stories behind Disney and some of the stories behind the studios. Look, we've already been on for half an hour. We've got a half an hour to go. It's just going so quickly. Can you give us some anecdotes that have happened within the industry that not many people know about that actually won't get us into trouble? If you know what I mean. Disney has more money than me.
Yeah,
I can't afford their legal bill.
I hear you. Well, it is kind of interesting. One of the greatest stories in our business is, when Disney was forming this, what they called the Seven Old Men. When the early days of the Seven Old Men, who became the seven guys that Walt relied on to create these great, feature films for years.
Yeah.
It was discovered. Of course, back in those days, people drank a lot more openly during lunch and the afternoons. But it was discovered that the animators, when they went out for lunch, they really did have the old 3 martini lunch. And the interesting thing about that was, not that they drank, but when they came back to work, half schnockered, they actually drew better than when they got in first thing in the morning. So it was very accepted for those guys to kind of toss a few back at lunchtime, because you knew in the afternoon they would just do some absolutely beautiful drawings because their hands were steady, they were relaxed, they weren't stressed out, whatever the deal was. The fact is, alcohol actually made them better artists because they calmed down and relaxed. And nowadays, of course, if any of us ever had a drink at lunchtime and somebody found out about it, we'd get in big trouble,
Yeah, you wouldn't have a job afterwards. Yeah.
That's right.
Don't you hate, what's that called? Occupational health and safety. They just took the fun out of everything. So when you but I remember seeing I remember seeing years ago, and because I loved this sort of thing, and when they used to do a storyboard or something like this, a lot of the original animators would actually go out into the car park and they'd reenact the story. If you know what I mean, they actually go out in the car park. They would walk around like Elmer Fudd or whatever, and go and act out the scenes. Then go back and draw it. I mean, because that's why they get the facial expressions. They take photos. They video record everything on those little old black and white video cameras. This is how a lot of the facial recognition, and how when you look at a cartoon image or a face on somebody, like in The Lion King, they use what's his name? L. Jones? James Earl Jones. Yeah. They use him to play Simba's father, Mustafa. And if you have a look in the expressions in the face of Mustafa, you see him. His same sort of staunch, fatherly sort of figure, a bit of a goof at times. I mean, that sort of the facial expressions, the same as Timon and Pumbaa. They have a lot of the facial. If you look past, if you know who the people are doing the voices, and you sort of look into the caricatures, you see a lot of the actual actor in there as well doing the voices, and that's just amazing. And that's how a lot of animators, in my view, look at a subject. And now I know you have you actually get the 3D animation side of it. Do animators still go out into the car parks and do that? So it's a funny question, but do you know what I mean? Do you run around the office still sort of going, trying to reenact something?
No, that's a good question, because usually in all the studios, most of the artists have some type of mirror at their desk. It may even be a full-length mirror in their cubicle or office, because we still lean back and try to capture an expression that we're doing with our face, or we try to turn our body a certain way that we're trying to capture, how am I going to get that dimension and depth, or a good profile, and we have to be able to see it in the mirror. They say that animators are basically actors that never really wanted to be in front of the camera. And so by being able to see yourself in these mirrors, or film yourself, and then watch it later as study, it really is a way of acting so that you can get the reference you need for the character that you're working on. So it is true. It's we talk about stuff like that. We pull our buddies aside and say, I'm working on this thing and I'm thinking about doing this, and then somebody gives a laugh and all of a sudden they're doing something different. You go, yeah, that's even better. It's still very much a, come on, let's go get a cup of coffee and I'll tell you what I'm working on. But you're doing it, for the love of silliness and trying to figure out what will make this character even better, even funnier.
I remember a couple of years ago, I got into an argument with another voiceover guy exactly on that subject. He says, being a voiceover guy is one of the hardest acting jobs you can do. And I thought, no, it's not. I thought, imagine the poor animator who's got to sit down there and give that voice life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the way it's drawn. It's the way it's the whole. Yeah, if I say something like "How you doing?" type thing, it doesn't matter if I'm saying it right, but how it's drawn, it's got to be.
It's got to back it up.
Exactly. It's got to back it up. The eyebrows, the eyes, the way they're looking, and when they did, and I think one of the hardest ones they did was Finding Nemo, where because their eyes are on the side of the head, so to speak, they had to sort of bring the eyes to the front to give it more of a. So they can actually see which way, because we all know fish have eyes at the head, but this is not many people think about, is that fish have eyes at the side of their head. Very few fish have sides at the front, but they actually literally had to bring the eyes around to the front, change the body shape, and actually give the definition, the muscles in the face, so it can actually look like it's talking and stuff like that. How hard would that be to make a fish human in that sense and give it that character? I mean, there's no point having a fish eyes side of head. The mouse fish only goes up and down, and that's it. There's no movement of the lip shape. There's no sort of anything, and you got to still make it look like a fish.
Right. I'll tell you this, only because I work at Disney and I haven't worked at any other features. Now, years ago, I worked at Sullivan Bluth Studios on Thumbelina, but that was a long time ago. But I will say this about Disney: they have dozens of people that do nothing but create these characters, create backgrounds, create atmosphere, and they will work for months trying to figure out how they can do just what you said, like in Finding Nemo, how we can take a fish and make it give expression that we believe, give it expression that we empathize with or understand. And yet at the same time, they can't push those designs too far to where they look bizarre or unrealistic. And they literally have dozens of people spending months tackling this kind of stuff, so that when it does finally reach the animator's desk where he has to struggle with trying to make it act, there actually is a character or a prop or a background that allows him to formulate this feeling and emotion. It's incredible the amount of work and effort that goes into just that, making it so that you can just animate it and it becomes believable or funny or graceful, depending on what your aim is within the movie. It's an incredible process.
Oh, it's an amazing process, and I think what Pixar does is great as well, but this is another point I want to bring up. Look, everything's now, we started off with movies, we've got cartoons, so to speak, going to computer generated. Now there's 3D computer generated. Do you think that, look, even the movies are great, and I'm not knocking them, do you think they've lost that soul? If you know what I mean. I could sit down and watch a good animated or computer generated movie, and I'll go, oh, that was really good, but it didn't have the same warmth as watching something that was drawn by hand. Is this a common thing for people to comment on, or do you think it's just because of the money side of it that they just go in that way now?
Well, that's another interesting question, and I in a way I feel kind of very naive, because I'm such a fan of movies anyway, and people will say before a movie comes out that the reviews are bad, or it's not as good as the original, or I had a friend that worked on it and he said it sucks, but I usually like to watch anything I can, because I figure there's something in it that's enjoyable, even if it's just the effects or the photography, the cinematography. I think when it comes to animation, unfortunately, what we've seen over the last 20 years, maybe even more so over the last 10 years, is a lot of big studios have gotten involved in really cranking out the product. And we've learned how to use 3D pretty well. We have certainly mastered 2D, and we know that we can throw enough people at a film and get it done in record time and get it out in the theaters and make a bunch of money, and maybe even make money off toys or secondary markets. But so our market becomes flooded with, let's say, average stuff, and then those occasional really grand things that just captivate or capture our attention, and we just go, wow, that was just phenomenal. It's a business. I understand that. But I think, 50 years ago, when Disney was the leader of the pack with animated feature films, and occasionally another studio might attempt to put something out, the craft was a little bit tougher. It was a little bit more special. Um, yeah, we get a lot of films that are okay, a couple of stinkers, and then every now and then we get one of those just really beautiful films, and you go, wow, I was only one or two great films in animation this year because there were 30 films put out. Well, that's just what they were going for. Um, but the good thing is, no matter what we do technologically or for monetary reasons, there is somebody out there every year or so that puts out just a great film, whether it's Disney or anybody else. I know DreamWorks has done some great stuff. The point is, there's still some really cool stuff being done that is just great to watch. It's great to have your kids watch. You're going to buy the DVD and pull it out next year and watch it a couple times. Polar Express was one of those films that I kind of heard people say, oh, it's going to suck. Oh, it's 3D and Christmas and Tom Hanks and it's just going to bomb. And the first time I watched it, I thought, this is not a bad little film. It's not meant to be the best thing ever made technologically, but the story was good. They did a great job on blending the 3D animation, and there's a ton of character work and backgrounds and great cinematography and editing and sound effects. And by the time I'd watched it 4 or 5 times, I was like, this is a darn good little film, and now we watch it every Christmas, and the kids love it. There's some good stuff being done that maybe gets railed on, but if you watch it a few times, you say, you know what, pretty darn good little film, and it may not come from Disney or it may not come from DreamWorks. Foreign films, there's a lot of good foreign films get done, that are beautiful and great stories, but they may only put out one film from that particular director or studio every 5 or 10 years, but it's a beautiful piece of work.
I mean, that's what a lot of the, if you go there, are places out there that actually do show people. There's a lot of cartoons out there that are just from a single person who spent many years just putting it together and stuff like that. And it comes out and it's only a couple of minutes long, but it has such an impact with people, especially at these film festivals and stuff like that. But what we also need to do is talk about your website too, Herb. The one
glad you brought that up, because I was just sitting here thinking of the Spotlight page, which has other people's animation on it.
But I have a great giggle when you send me stuff through. Would you like to tell the good listeners about your website, please, mate? Because I got to check it out. It's brilliant. You've got the floor, all right.
No, the great thing about the website, I developed this website called animationsoup.net. And initially, I thought, I've worked on a lot of stuff on my own that I've either produced or co-produced with friends that I think would be fun for people to see. The whole idea was, I want to put it out there on the internet, on my website, and people can come and get a laugh, because we all need a laugh every day. We got to take a break from whatever stress we're under and just have a little fun. So a 1 or 2 minute cartoon would be a great way of kind of breaking your day's stress or monotony. So that's where animationsoup.net started. Ironically, as the viewership increased and I realized that I couldn't crank out a good cartoon as fast as I wanted, because I'm not going to put crap on the website, I started seeking other people's cartoons or short animations to put on the website, with the idea that there's a lot of other stuff out there that's great, and I wanted to be able to give them some exposure. I wanted people who come to my site to be able to say, wow, I saw a really cool film today. It made me laugh. It was beautifully done. I've never seen anything like it. And so I developed this page called the Spotlight Animation page, and it's strictly devoted to people from around the world that have done short animations that I think are kind of undiscovered gems. They may already be on the net, and there may be people that have a decent following, but if I can help gain them a little more exposure for something they've done and done beautifully, then I feel good about it. So I'm kind of happy to share the limelight. Now, granted, animationsoup.net is still a place where I want to put up my content and draw viewers and talk about funny stuff that I'm doing. But I think this is one of the things I love about our business is we love to see other people make great films, do great stories, create beautiful works of art. And I'm happy if I can find somebody that has some decent film stuff. If I can share it with my followers, then that's great. I think that's what Animation Soup is supposed to be now. It's kind of more of a compilation of a whole bunch of stuff instead of just Herb Moore stuff. But it's fun, and the whole idea behind it, as I said, is I want you to stop by and check it out and have a laugh. And if you come back in a day or two, I hope there's some more new stuff up there, and you'll get another laugh.
What we're going to do is we're also going to put the website link straight under this interview, Herb, just for you, mate. So the amount of hits this show gets, it's going to get hammered even more for you, old mate. So that's what I mean. And Animation Soup is just phenomenal. I get a kick out of it. I when I'm up late working or doing stuff, like my family's gone to bed or something like that, I sit down, I put Animation Soup on, and I have a laugh, and I go, I feel better now, and I go back and write script or something like that, or what an ad work I'm doing. So it's good, please, folks. And if you have anything that you think is of animation quality, and Herb's been around for a long time, and he knows what's good and what's not. And if you want to send him a sample of what you do work-wise, and if it's good enough to go on Animation Soup, I'm sure he will talk to you. Is that okay, Herb?
Absolutely. I love it when people send me stuff.
Yeah. But it's got to be it's got to be good quality stuff. That's the thing. Everything on there is good quality. Nothing's rude or gross or anything like that. So don't bother sending him anything like that. But if it's good, funny entertainment, then please send it through to Herb. Herb, mate, we've only got another 15 minutes to go on our little shinwag tonight, which is always a shame. Mate, so we've talked about Animation Soup, your website, which, like I said, please, people, go to. I'll put it up on the website so you can go directly to Herb and you need to content and go from there. Just on to stories and things that also. So we talked about in the olden days how a lot of the animators used to get absolutely sloshed, go out and maybe I should start drinking while I'm interviewing.
Me too.
That's a thought. No, seriously. I mean, mind you. I do have a bit of a stutter, you see. I'm a stutterer, so doing this, I'm doing pretty well. There's a lot of good voiceover blokes out there who do stutter, and we manage to knock it on the head. But right. I reckon when I'm really drunk, I don't stutter at all, so I think I might hit the sauce on a daily basis. No, no kidding. No, I won't hit the sauce. But that's what I mean. It's all good fun in what we do, and that's the idea behind Naked Zombie is to get that information out there. So people who have something great to talk about, and it's geeky enough for me, and you can't get more geekier than Herb. Sorry, Herb. When it comes to doing the animation, because he does such a phenomenal job, and he's got the experience and the years behind him to actually to do this work, and that's why Naked Zombie has turned a page, in a lot of words, is not only we do paranormal, but pop culture is a big part of our lives as well. Isn't that right, Herb?
Yes,
and you
absolutely.
Can't get more pop culture than animation, in my eyes. And
yes.
I'm lucky that Herb agreed to speak to us today, all the way from California, mind you. You're in the north side, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you notice they talk slightly different to the south ones? Hey, what?
Well, I'm in North Los Angeles County, which is a big stinking county. I got to tell you, Los Angeles is a big city, but there's a whole lot of land around it that still doesn't have, houses on it. But
when he meant by stinking in Australian terms, he doesn't mean it smells. That stinking's a different terminal. Which we talked about this.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is wonderful. Okay, Herb. So we talked about that. We talked about this, and I'm just making my notes as I do this. Isn't it terrible? Okay. Next question is: has there anything? What? We've all heard some stories about there's been a couple of weird events that happen at these studios and stuff. I've got to talk about the haunting side of it. Breaker for look, there's always been rumours that the Disney Studios is haunted. Is it true? Yes or no?
Boy, that is a good question. I don't know that I should be the one to tell the story or not. But I have to say, let me put it this way: the Disney Studio, in early morning or late at night, is very much like a college campus. It's well lit. It's got individual buildings, little pathways or streets, and you just sit there and think, man, I'd like to go to a college that was just like this. During the day, there's a lot more hustle bustle going on, so it seems more business-like. But I will have to tell you that if I'm there early morning or late in the evening and I leave my building, there is kind of a strange, eerie feeling like there are people watching you, but yet there's nobody around you. I mean, nobody, that. So I think there might be a few legendary animators that have passed on and have chose to spend an eternity at the lot instead of under or over this earth we live on.
Oh, look,
I would think there probably are. That's kind of weird.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I do make it to California, mate, you're going to have to take us for a bit of a tour. You still allowed to drive the boat thing?
Well, the funny thing is, every time I go on the jungle cruise with my kids, I remember, way back when I did it, and it was such an abusive job because people would holler at you and yell at you. But you come to California, and I will give you a tour of the studio. And I have to throw this in, although this wouldn't necessarily go into the legendary paranormal kind of stuff. But in a way, it is kind of creepy. It's cool, but creepy. When Walt Disney built the studio, he had his animation building, and then where the animators did their drawings and the background people did the backgrounds and paint and all this stuff. And then they had the ink and paint building, which was right next door, which was maybe 50 feet, 60 feet apart. So he had a tunnel built between the two buildings so that in case it was bad weather, they could take this great artwork over to ink and paint, and in ink and paint they would paint the cells and match it up with the backgrounds. And so anybody can go in this tunnel, but it is an old concrete kind of dark and dreary tunnel with little hanging lights and pipes, and there's some cobwebs, and there's a place where they used to store I don't know what, that it's all closed up with a big steel grated door, and it's just the weirdest kind of dungeony kind of feeling, It's wild, but there is a legendary tunnel connecting those two buildings that Walt built.
Oh, that's so cool. I'll have to go and check it out. Mate, look, and just quickly, just on the Disney side of it, now, the rumour is that I heard that Mickey Mouse is everywhere. He's, and what I mean is that he's just about in everything at the park, isn't he? I mean, there's in the taps and the floor, and up you look up high, there's like big images of him in some of the buildings, and he's like the whole... Mickey Mouse is Disney in a nutshell. Is that correct? And that's I know that it's true, but I haven't been there.
It is. They even have, especially nowadays with Twitter, you can get updates on things where they will say they have something going on at the park. Can you spot Mickey Mouse at such and such? But they have carved or placed little Mickey Mouse heads in some of the architecture. And they have games where you can actually go and see if you can find all 50 Mickey heads in the park or whatever,
Jeez.
And it's very subliminal in the sense that it might be carved into some concrete or into some wood that's painted all the same color, but you really have to be looking for it. But Mickey is everywhere. There's no doubt about it. It's a good thing he's a good character versus an evil character because he's all over the place.
Yes, no, that's good. You wouldn't know what Zorb or something like that, or lettering the whatever his name is, mate. Look, we actually have come to the end of the hour, and I'm sorry. Look, I could keep talking about this all day, but we'll have a catch up a bit later on, anyway, mate. Absolutely. So I'll just get you to stay on the phone after we go. Listen, for our final catch up. Listen, personally, Herb, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about the industry and stuff like that, and being a part of Naked Zombie. It's been a pleasure talking to you again, old mate, and please don't be a stranger. And that note, I would just like to thank Herb again and for our listeners. And like I say each week, have a good night, have a safe night, and if you're out investigating, please take care of each other. I'm your host, Brad Scott, and you have been listening to Naked Zombie Radio. Good night. We've all been there. How hard is it to set up a website? And if you're not technically minded enough, it can be really frustrating. And the expense just seems to go on and on. But I've got something for you. How does your own website, 5 pages including a contact form for $5.95?
That's right, $5.95 for your very own website.
This includes your social links, hosting domain. This is where it gets even better. If you have your own Flickr account or images on Facebook already, you only need to provide a link, and these can be included on the site for $5.95. Look, there's even more to this deal. Also feature a blog, and you will have the ability to update it anytime yourself. That's right, you don't need to pay someone to come and do it for you. Now, who do you need to speak to about this? There's one person you call, and that's Jamie Keogh at Key Designs and their email address is, that's jamie@keydesigns.com.au, KEYDESIGNZ.com.au.